What up, everyone?
Hey everyone, it's Courtney and Jeremy with Reckless Cards.
And it's been about 1 week since the National. Courtney's still alive. She was in Atlantic City, so she got what they called the Atlantic City death flu. She was out of commission for approximately 7 days, but now she has composed herself in between the violent puking, diarrhea, blood coming out of her pores, eyes, nose, ears. She's here because she said, "Damn it, Jeremy, we need to give the peeps a rundown of what happened."
Yeah, I got I got what I'm calling the national plague because I took like 82 COVID tests and they all came back negative. So I don't think that I had COVID, but I just honestly I feel lucky that I didn't get, I know I have friends who ended up staying in Atlantic City, which is like the worst thing I can imagine because they were too sick to travel back home. So at least I got to, die in peace at my own house. I'm resurrected now.
That is correct. So what we want to do is we want to give a rundown of everything that happened through our lens, what our thought process was going into it, what it was during it, and what it is afterwards. Now that we've had a couple days to really digest and reflect and calm down of what was truly a whirlwind of a week of events.
It was crazy. So I think the best way to go about this is kind of talk about a little bit of what went on maybe right before the national, like agreeing to pick up those slabs from Harborough, kind of like how we planned on not really buying, and then we can discuss sort of how all of our plans kind of went out the window once we got there because we did not stick to our plan, I don't think, at all.
Well, it's like the old adage: every fighter has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? And so we
Yes.
had a pretty good game plan. Like if you pay attention, there seems to be some very consistent cycles. And one thing that we picked up on last year was everybody prior to National just unload stuff because they want to have cash at National. So we had built up a modest little nest egg and we're buying up cards leading up to the National. So when we went, our expectation was, unless it's like a big card that we could, trade plus cash to get into, we're probably not looking to do any buying. And then any real activity would come in the form of deals at trade night, and maybe even sell a little at trade night.
Yeah, and I've been really talking a lot lately about being a responsible hobby participant. We have like lots of friends who have gotten themselves into financial strains by like over leveraging themselves in cards. So we're very strict about not dipping into our personal budget anymore to support the hobby. Our cards support themselves.
Anymore, right there, ladies and gentlemen, because we were guilty of that. Because every day there's a deal that is the greatest deal ever, and you can't pass it up. And next thing you know, you're like, damn, I've got a lot of cards, but not as much cash. So Courtney said, you know what? We're going to separate everything, and we are going to make financially savvy business decisions based on what's available in the Reckless Card bank account.
Yeah, and because we spent a lot of money, it was a dip. So there's a lot of cards that like you couldn't even think about buying last year before the national. This year, not only are people liquidating because they want cash before the national, but the price of cards was in general down. So it was really nice to be able to buy cards that we wanted and as much as we want, really. And then leading up to the national, we'd spent a ton of money on cards, and we had like even if I wanted to dip into our regular money, I'm like I typically be an anxious kind of person, and my van needed some serious work, and we had bats break into our house. And so my idea heading into the national is we have spent all the money that I'm going to spend on everything, and I have no intention of spending a ton of money on cards at the national. I want to go and see my friends who I only get to see online. I want to go, and push forward some of the stuff that we're doing for Reckless Cards in general. So it wasn't about buying at the national. I definitely we had so much fun at trade nights last year that I was like looking forward to bringing some of the cards that we had picked up that we weren't super in love with as trade bait for cards that maybe we saw that we wanted at trade nights versus actually buying cards at the show.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair point, and I wish more people would talk about that because I think with social media, it's easy to get bamboozled into people like you think everybody just has these endless bankrolls, and that's not what it is. And when we sat down and figured out what we're going to do and the way we're going to manage our finances, it forces you sometimes to make some it would appear at first to be more difficult decisions, but they actually I think have made us both a little bit savvier when it comes to understanding what's the financial impact of each and every decision. And maybe that card that we thought was the greatest deal ever, maybe it doesn't make sense just because it's going to tie up cash or we're going to have everything locked up in one card for an extended period of time. So I think it's been a great exercise for us.
I think I agree with that. And going into the national, I've started collecting more pop culture cards like Stranger Things. And I thought like the one thing where I was like, oh, if I see these, this would be something that I've set aside some money for. And I'm going to buy Stranger Things cards, which at the show, I didn't see any. It worked out though, because the little bit of money I budgeted towards Stranger Things cards, we got to move somewhere else because they were giving away Stranger Things cards for free as long as you were willing to wait in line for hours and hours. So I did get my Stranger Things cards. I just didn't have to spend the money I allocated towards them.
So we go up to the national buying other people's cards so they can have cash to spend there. We determined that we were going to drive. And typically, we fly. I'm a big Delta snob. I love anywhere I can fly Delta direct. However, going to AC, I've never been before, but it's not an easy place to get to unless you're flying Spirit direct. And the last time we flew Spirit was like maybe 10 years ago. We went to Las Vegas and they lost your luggage.
I was like,
and it was in that moment we determined we need to make more money because flying Spirit is not for us. Not knocking anybody who does, but for a diva like myself and Court, just not the way. So we decided that we were going to drive because most people are flying into Newark or Philly and then renting a car anyway. We had a bunch of stuff to bring for Women of the Hobby, the setup. You had bought a bunch of blasters, WNBA blasters to give away. Yeah. You had those awesome hats that were a smashing success to give away. We had 2 thick shirts we were going to give away. You and me both absolutely suck balls at packing. So we brought, even though we've got one walk-in closet at our home, somehow we brought 2 closets worth of clothes. And I spent a majority of the time wearing, what are those things called? Clogs or Uggs or whatever the hell they are.
Crocs. And I came home with more clothes than I left with because everybody was giving me t-shirts, which I cannot express how exciting it is for me because I've decided that I'm going to collect hobby shirts. So everywhere I walked, and because I said that, anyone I knew was like, oh, I brought you a t-shirt. So I went home, I think, with like another dozen t-shirts. So that was super cool.
Yeah. So we decided going up there, we were just going to drive. It was like maybe an 11-hour drive. I think we made it in like 11 hours and 30 minutes, 11:40. Only stopped a few times, a couple of Starbucks runs, a Dunkin' Donuts run, and then bathroom and gas. And we made great time. Now, I will say there was a snafu on my end. I thought we were attending the show Thursday to Sunday, and we had booked well in advance. We actually booked at the Sheraton, which was, which I would call on campus. It wasn't connected, but it might as well have been connected. And so we thought, during the day, if you want to take a break and go back to the hotel and freshen up, you want to take a nap, you want to go to the lobby, we thought it just made sense. Now, I will say, it cost us 120,000 Marriott points, and it came out to about, if you were to put that in dollars, it was about $600 a night all in. And I will say, just a quick reaction to the hotel, that was not a $600 a night hotel, so it kind of stings to give up the points on that, but it is what it is. But Sarah Layton was kind enough to offer us a Wednesday spot, and I was slow to react, so we had to book a last-minute hotel.
I love how you're taking responsibility for all of this when this was all 1,000% my fault. So we ended up having to stay at like a.
I tried. I am a shining knight.
Like I can't. Yeah, I totally dropped the ball. I did not book the hotel in time. I'm thinking it's a Wednesday in Atlantic City. There's going to be plenty of hotels, and there wasn't. Our hotel room had actual poo-poo in it. The air conditioning. Oh no, the air conditioning at the Sheraton didn't work. The air conditioning at the bad hotel worked just fine. But it was like we booked a king, and they gave us a double bed. It was just serious first world problems, except for the doo-doo. Like, I don't think you should ever walk into a hotel room that you're paying for, especially like during like we're still like pandemicing out there. So like, I don't want someone else's poo sitting in the toilet when I walk into
Yeah, I
my
think it's a fair
room.
rule. No doo doo.
No poo poo. So that was probably the worst thing. The hotel staff was super friendly there. At least there was like on-site parking, even though it was like you had to like give them your keys because it was 3 deep and it was weird, but it was fine. For one night, we were barely there because Wednesday we got to the hotel. We did not unpack any of our stuff. We literally just changed and like folded our clothes neatly because I didn't want them to be in the room for more than they had to be. And then we
Hold on, let me
left.
cut you off though, Court. When me and Courtney go into a hotel room, we own it.
Yes.
We undo our bags and there is shit everywhere. We were so motivated to get the hell up out of this hotel that we were like packing as we were changing.
Yes. Yes.
This
It
was
was
essentially a place for a quick shower and somewhere to nap where like maybe you keep your clothes on when you nap.
I think I slept on top of the blankets that night. So the neighborhood around was terrible. There was like violence going on. There was, prostitutes like during the day at like 3 o'clock. I grew up in Chicago. We live in Detroit and Flint. You see stuff like this, but usually it's like at nighttime. And it was just, there was people were getting mugged. And this was just Wednesday. So we leave the hotel. We drive down to the convention center. I have to say, my least favorite part about the way that this was set up, and I think it's a problem that needs to be fixed wherever they have it, is the parking. Like, you either have to rent a car, especially with Atlantic City being so hard to fly into, you have to rent a car and like, pay to rent the car, pay for the flight, and then pay to park. Like, it was like $20 to $40 everywhere you parked, and you couldn't just like walk everywhere. You had to drive everywhere, get your car out and go pay somewhere else, or Uber, which is fine, but it was really hard to get an Uber because there were so many people trying to Uber all at the same time. That was like, the infrastructure in Atlantic City is not set up for large events or huge crowds of people. It's just the entire, and I know you talked about this, so I'm not going to go into detail about it. Go listen to Two Thick Pod. Jeremy had a great take on this. It's just, if you're going to be having a huge convention center, the city itself, this is like a failure of the Chamber of Commerce. It's a failure of like everything, that they were not prepared for the amount of people. I mean, the VIP tickets were sold out in advance. There was no way that they didn't know that this event was going to be huge, and not having anywhere to eat, not having anywhere, not having enough Uber drivers, not having enough taxis, not having enough transportation. It was just a disaster, in my opinion, which made everything kind of slow going on Wednesday, because once we got in there and found parking, which we ended up paying for parking at the Sheraton, even though we weren't staying there, because
Yeah,
parking
it
was
comes
like
down
6 blocks away.
a little bit of a hustle because you get there and then you realize all the parking sold out. And at this point, it's 90 some odd degrees and humid, and we have to lug 4 armfuls of stuff. So parking far away at this point was not an option. Leaving Courtney by herself was not an option just because the amount of stuff we had. So went to the Sheraton and I'm like, oh, valet, that's not a problem. They're like, are you staying here? And I was like, not technically staying here till tomorrow. So I was very wordy, and I'm like, yeah, I check out Sunday afternoon, blah, 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 blah. So we just valeted right across the street. So a little bit of an old school hustle, and I was able to navigate the waters without bold-faced lying, so I didn't lose any sleep at nighttime.
So we get in, and here's the thing. We've been doing this for a while, so we know people. So we walk in, and I'm anxious because we're supposed to be going live at the Women of the Hobby booth at 6 o'clock, and it is like now 5:35. And we did not, because we weren't initially coming, I had not purchased tickets for Wednesday. I'm like, oh, we'll just get general admission that day because we're not going to be there the whole day. So I didn't even buy the tickets online because we had terrible service driving through the mountains. So I'm like, we'll just get them right when we walk in. No big deal. By the time we get there, it'll have been going. There won't be a line, which I was right. There wasn't. But I did not anticipate running into people that we knew immediately upon arriving. And then, they want to talk. And that's great. And I'm super excited to see them. But also I'm like, internally freaking out because I'm like, we're late. We're going to be late.
I would also add that it wasn't just like anybody. It was like Cage Lawyer, Goldberg, Adam Lefkoe, Lamim James. And so these are people that, on Instagram via the hobby route are people of notoriety. And so if they want to stop and chat, you're like, yeah, cool. And so we want to chop it up. And even though the exhibit hall is like up just a short escalator ride and then to the right, there's still like 450,000 square feet. And we understand there's probably a good chance that we're going to walk in the door and not have any idea of where the hell we're going. So we were very gracious, very humble. You guys are the best, yada, 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 but we have to go. And me and Courtney are both anxious people. So we could have been ready 4 days in advance and there would have still been angst until the actual hobby night school is completed. So to cut a long story short, you get in it, the numbering system's goofy, it's whack. We ask a couple of people, finally find it located beyond the Whatnot booth, get set up with like 10 minutes to spare.
We made it. It was fine. It worked out. I like all the anxiety and freaking out and everything was, par for the course, but unnecessary. We go live with Love What You Collect. So that's Erica and her daughter, Natiri, and it was wonderful. I accidentally went live for the first half of it on my personal Instagram, and then we stopped and restarted. I'm going to actually mesh those together and make like one episode on YouTube when I get around to that, now that I'm not dead anymore. But it was so much fun, and actually being at the Women of the Hobby booth was wonderful. Like I can't express enough how much that like Bullpen LA and Leighton Sports Cards, like what they did to like set that up was incredible. It was a beautifully done booth. They were giving away multiple different t-shirts. They had tons of packs for the kids. The Panini sponsored stuff where they were giving away NFTs. They had autograph signings from female athletes. They did breaks with tops. It was bar none so well done. I can't applaud them enough for that. And I loved seeing all the women and the little girls just being so excited and involved and coming up to the booth and being like, oh, this is all women. This is so cool. That, and like even the little boys were like, oh, it's so good for like children of boys and girls to see women participating and being like a face in the hobby that you can look to as knowledgeable and somewhere you can go to actually get something done. And and watching the women show off their collections and their pickups. Every time I popped by that booth, everyone was so excited and happy to be there. And not saying that wasn't like that, but there were lots of booths where people were just like sitting and being like, that booth the entire time. Everyone was smiling.
How are they? How are they? Now, I will say one thing that as we were getting set up, behind the scenes, two things. One, I purposely grabbed a hotspot from work to have internet, and we left it. And so little did I know it wouldn't have made a damn difference. And two, like, was midway through that when I recognized, oh crap, they're on Courtney's personal Instagram and not the Reckless Cards Instagram. How do I like stop this and correct it? Because there was a good conversation going. The internet was working a little bit. And we felt obligated to take this live on Reckless Cards. We didn't want anybody thinking that we were just trying to get in, use the booth, and then not give that booth the publicity it deserved. So it was like a little awkward knowing how uncomfortable Courtney was. And like, I could see like the calm rising off of her or coming to her as she was going through this. And I was like, oh man, I might fucking break her if I tell her that like, all this is for naught.
Okay. I feel like I recovered okay. And to Erica's credit, she is just a champion, and she just like rolled with it. She's like, all right, we're starting over, it's fine. So it was great.
So I know how passionate you are about that, and if I let you talk, we'll be 7 hours later, and we'll still
For
be in
sure.
Wednesday. So the moment it is done, everybody exchanged pleasantries. Thank you. We ask if we can leave some of our stuff there, and at
Which
this
they were
point,
super chill about.
we've got a backpack, we've got a credit card, we've got some cash, and we go and grab a cold drink, and you could just tell like any kind of like jitters, nerves, uneasiness about getting it are gone. And now it is, let's just have fun, let's network, and let's just see where the night takes us.
That was where it started to get fun for me, because as we're waiting in line for beer, I run into the guys from Foul Line Breaks, who I know from TikTok. We've stitched each other's stuff before. I run into Mike from Back into Cards, and like all the guys from Foul Line have their girlfriends, fiancés, wives, whatever with them, and they're just like all super excited to be there, which it was so cool to see. Like I think a lot of the played out stuff in the hobby is like, oh, women, my wife doesn't want me to come. Here's like a whole group of people with their wives, and Manny brought his wife who's not super into cards, and they had a great time. So it was really refreshing to see that. It was fun to hang out with those guys, and like chit chat with them. They're like such nice guys. But by that time we had been there as the length of time that we could. So we left the show. I didn't see anything else except for the Women of the Hobby booth, the Whatnot booth, because it was right there, and then that beer stand. Those guys we chatted with for a while, and then we're like, time to go because we have an event that we have to get to.
Yeah, and so one thing that I noticed right away, I had two observations that I made, and I don't know if I want to say underestimated. I guess I just didn't recognize, I just didn't realize it. One, when you're known in the hobby, and this is something actually when we get later in, I want to pick your brain about. It is such a like an awesome slash humbling experience. Like I can't I don't have the words to put it. It's like a great feeling when somebody that you don't know who's a complete stranger stops you to tell you something nice. But it's also like an interesting dynamic because I'm like a person who becomes like mission focused on a task at hand. And so it's like I know the correct thing to do is, and the thing that I want to do is to give this person the time that they deserve. I mean, this person's allocated minutes, hours, days, whatever, to listen to something that we created. That's the least I can do. So that was like something that I was not at all expecting. I was mindful that at some point it may happen. The volume of which it did was incredible, but it was like 10x for you because you're much more visible. And the other thing was, holy shit, TikTok's got its whole world that I have no idea what's going on. And so it was also in that moment I realized I am just so old and disconnected from these things that there's like, and I'm not talking like a guy with like hundreds of followers. I mean, these are people with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of like followers who are like coming up and they're like, yeah, I don't know who the hell you are. Courtney, great to see you. Hug. Here, champ, can you hold this while we take pictures? And I'm like, yeah, I got you. So that was like something that like was evident right away. And I was like, holy shit, Courtney is a lot more popular than me as well. This is a
Well,
first.
it's like different from high school when you were way more popular than me. So times have changed. So we left, we changed because I was like done being hot. I wanted to go put on like something cooler and head over to the Hard Rock because
Yep.
that was where the collectible event was being hosted.
Yeah, the collectible and the cigar night brought to you by Lucas Tigers and Bronze.
Tigers and Bronze, yeah. And we are NFT
Yep.
holders, so we got to go to that, which was super cool. I had so much fun at that event. First of all, like bravo to like all the people. It was like Card Ladder. Who else sponsored? There was like a ton of people sponsoring that, and
Marino did an incredible job of putting it together.
Like I emailed him a couple times just with like questions about stuff. He responded. He was so kind, and you know how much pressure it is. If you've ever put on an event, it's so much pressure and people emailing you, and for him to just like reach out like anytime that anyone had a question and just be like so kind, bravo. Like the event was beautiful, the food was good, the bartenders were super friendly. Um, it was just, they had all sorts of cool little pillows that they gave away at the end. I don't know if they were giving away, people were taking, I didn't take one, but people were taking them. There was, it was a blast. It was up above the boardwalk, so you could see the boardwalk and like the carnival thing they had over on the
Yeah.
boardwalk. So it was I had a blast seeing everybody. It was so nice. Like, it's so funny. I was talking to Sports Card Stallion about how it was insane that we had to drive from Michigan to Atlantic City to meet each other in person, even though we all live in Michigan. So it was cool getting to see, and John, and there's just like everyone. And that was what I was looking forward to with going to the National, was seeing like all of the people that we talk to all the time online, and like getting to see them in person and like make that connection in real life.
Yeah, so this was, from a networking perspective, this was one of the, I don't want to say the premier, but one of the premier events, and it legitimately had the who's who of the hobby. And I don't want to just spend the next 15, 20 minutes name dropping, but anybody and everybody was there. And to put in perspective, you had like Lawrence Taylor, Chris Mullen, Tim Hardaway Jr., all these athletes like standing right next to you, smoking cigars with you, open bar, open drinking. So it was a real fun experience. But, at the end of the night, when that show was done, we found ourselves at the food court with Manny. It's Callie, baby, Mrs. Squirts, and E. And so it was like, that was our little click for post party. And it was just a really good time. I really enjoyed the company, laughed very hard. Sarah's my girl, and she's incredibly lucky to have E in her life.
Yeah, E is your hobby husband, right? It's apparently E is your hobby husband and Manny is my son. So that's what I was told today. So that made me laugh. But we're just creating a family. And it's so funny too, because we talked about like we've collected for a long time, but we didn't get on to like social media for collecting until right before the pandemic happened, when everybody did. And it's so weird that something like where we're all like stuck at home and you feel kind of lonely, and we built up this like hobby community of people that like have become like close and friends. And so in this time where everything was kind of crappy, this like great thing has come out of it. And now we get to see this to fruition, where we get to actually hang out and spend time with these people that we genuinely care about at events like this. So it was like, that's the highlight for me, for real.
So we get back to the hotel 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, take a nap, wake up, shower, pack our stuff, get over to the convention center, probably about maybe half hour, 45 minutes, valet park, and then get into the show. And
we
at
didn't
this
even check
point,
into the new hotel. We just left.
didn't even check in. And I'm like a gold or an elite member, whatever the hell it is. And so like I get all the perks, and they're like, we can't get you in right away. We'll hope to have a room by you like 10, 11 o'clock. We're like, nope, we're out of that other hellhole. We're over here in the show. We're about to walk it. Let's see what's going on. And it was so refreshing because there was no pressure to buy cards because we'd already done the buying. No pressure to sell cards because we had the money. And it was just going to go and walk around and meet people.
This
now,
is a preamble to Jeremy causing lots of pressure.
No. I want to say one thing is the day before, Courtney had put on a ton of hats at the booth. And so people were grabbing the hats and people were wearing them. And people were stopping Courtney saying, can I have a hat? Can I get a hat? Can I get a hat? And this wasn't just people being like friendly for the sake of being friendly. These are people that wanted these damn hats. Our Instagram, when we did occasionally have internet service, hold a hat for me. Let me get a hat. Let me get a hat. Let me get a hat. And so it was cool because at first, when we get separated that first day, Court was wearing the hat. I would just look for the orange. Boom. By the end of the show, I went to hand a lady a water. I'm like, oh, you're not my wife. You're somebody completely different because everybody's wearing this damn hat.
I saw so many like people's social media, like Ludex and Fanatics, where people were opening things on their stories wearing my hat. I'm like, oh, he's got my hat on. It was exciting, and we only have 3 left. So I've been trying to think, because like so many people that didn't go to the show wanted them. So I'm definitely gonna order more, and we will have more soon. But I think these last 3 from the show, I might do some sort of giveaway on Instagram. to give the last 3 hats away, because I definitely want people to have them, but I don't know how to like do it so it's fair, you know, like because so many people asked for them.
Put one up on eBay and like let's see how let that thing ride.
And I was thinking maybe I'd number them like one of three, two of three, three of three, and like you don't know which one you're gonna get. I don't know. I'm working on something. What we're gonna do? I'm gonna give those last 3 away somehow.
Yeah,
But
so I
yeah,
would say other than certain booths that we knew we wanted to stop by or certain people we wanted to see, there was no real game plan. I think it was just to talk to as many people as possible, network, make those connections, and then, just try to see some cool cards, man. And we were there with Manny and his wife, and Manny went and he had built a bankroll with the expectation to buy some bigger cards and potentially do a little bit of selling. So it was kind of cool because Manny's exposure and tenure in the hobby has been different than ours. And so it's always a great time when you get some people who are open minded together and just like collaborate, because the way he looks at the hobby is different than the way Courtney does, and it's different from me. And so it always provides like a awesome opportunity for a fresh perspective or just a unique way to look at things. And so we're just really happy to be walking the show and meeting people. And lo and behold, ran into Bro Namath again, who we met the night before.
yep. That was interesting because Bro Namath had a card that he had posted on his Instagram that Jeremy wanted. And that is kind of where our carefully laid plan sort of derailed.
No. So it kind of came to fruition. Like we had an idea this might come. So he had posted a Jordan auto like a couple weeks before, and he brought like 10 cards that he was going to bring. I'll have it, Nats. Hit me up, yada yada yada. And so he's a LeBron guy. So anytime he posts anything about Jordan, I'm like, that guy sucks. He's a piece of crap. Kind of like low key, let him know, we're interested in the card. So we're walking around. We bump into each other after everybody's giving each other hugs, exchanging pleasantries. I say, hey, can I see the card? Just I really wanted to see it in person. It was a cool looking card. Took us over to his buddy's showcase, Vadim, and he pulled it out, and I was like, damn. We're just sitting there looking at it, like me and Courtney are like, this is a beautiful card. This is a beautiful card. And like, you're doing the math, like, what do I have to do? And it was like, it was very doable, but it was not going to be easy. And so
No.
we're sitting there talking about it, and to his credit, he came up and put an arm on each of us, and kind of felt me up a little bit, wanted to feel the traps, but then also like whispered a number into our ears that was a number that you can't say no to, and you would be an asshole. And so in that moment, one thing that I felt, and I hope this comes across, and Courtney can probably articulate in a way better than I can, just the fact that somebody would give us such a discount or do such a favor made me feel like proud of the way we've conducted ourselves and the way we've treated people within the hobby. Because this wasn't just, hey, this is a potential buyer, I'm just gonna like knock off a couple of points and say I'm doing you a favor. This was, hey, we've been hobby friends for a long time, we've done deals back and forth, hey, this is a card I know you want, I'm gonna make sure I leave plenty of meat on the bone to help you get the card.
And it went from like, when we went in, I knew that Jeremy wanted this card because we had talked about it. And I was just like, with everything that's been going on, I'm not sure if I feel comfortable making that kind of investment this week. Let's see if he still has it after the show. That was kind of my mindset. But then when he gave us the price, I was like, well, okay, guess we're going to do this. And it was like, to Jeremy's credit, he's like, so do you want to do this? And if you do, are you ready for some like stress that we did not intend to have on this trip? Because Jeremy is a lot of things, but he does not like to go up to people and be like, hey, I'm selling these cards. He puts them on eBay. We do story sales. We do Discord sales where it's like, this is the intention of this. But like just walking up to tables and being like, hey, I have these cards for sale. Are you buying? It's not his favorite thing to do, which is like everybody has their strengths. And he's like really good at negotiating and knowing what cards are valuable, where I'm more like, I buy what I like. I buy only what I know, where Jeremy will go educate himself on something that he doesn't know to see if it's worth buying. And I won't. I'm just like, if I don't know this, I'm just like, that's not my thing. So he knew that if we were going to do this, it was going to mean me going table to table to table to table to sell the cards that we brought to sell. And so I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's sell these cards. So Thursday,
Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. I want to a couple of things. One, that is definitely not. We have an advantage over like the person that's by himself because there's a lot of things that I like doing that Courtney hates, and there's a lot of things that vice versa. And so we do play into that. We understand we each have certain roles within the business that gives us sometimes, I would say, competitive advantage because going out, like if I'm set up at a table and somebody comes up wants to buy a card, that's cool. But the people who go table to table, like I don't deal, which is crazy because in like real life you have to deal with rejection and bouncing back. But as like a hobby, that's just something I choose that like I can't deal. I choose not to deal with that stress and angst. And so when we agreed that we were going to make this happen, we told them, hey, we got a deal. But this is our thing. We just bought the P Will 1 of 1, which is a decent chunk of change. And we've got a mortgage, 4 kids, 3 dogs. Like we've got real life. We don't have a money tree out back. So we're gonna make this happen, and that was that. I'm gonna fast forward to provide a little bit of perspective. I run in again as Courtney has now started like her. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna move some cards. I run into Bro Namath again, who takes the card and puts it in my pocket that somebody just almost bought it at the table for his asking price. And he just so happened to be there and he's like, no, this card's already spoken for. And so that's where like, hey, Court, are you ready for some added strain? Because here's the thing, if we don't move some cards, then we're going to be forced to dip into our personal finance, which means what the hell's the point of having the plan? What's the whole point of last year leaving the national and going to Wisconsin to buy a lot? Because if we're gonna grind like hobbyists, let's actually grind like hobbyists. So we applied that pressure to ourselves to, all right, now we have to offset this.
Yeah. And so to Jeremy's credit, because he doesn't like to do that, he just sort of backed off and let me do my thing. I went from table to table. I had the cards out. I had my plan. I'm like, this is what I'm selling. And, it was like, I would get interest. I had like a big card that was kind of like harder to sell, and then a smaller card or another bigger card. But like, I was trying to move them together because I felt like there would be more upside for someone to buy them as like, a lot. So
yeah.
and I knew
we had the Luis Robert Black Atomic Refractor rookie with on-card auto numbered to 10. And then we had the Justin Herbert rookie green pulsar, neon green pulsar with the auto PSA 9.
And then I had an Mbappe also refractor. So
yeah,
I was looking to move all of that. And the Blue Bob, while I still have like a lot of faith in him, he decided to be dizzy the week of the national, and like people are like, this guy's a mess. So I'm looking for like a Chicago table, someone who can appreciate this card, people from Chicago, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going table. I'm getting, well, we'll buy the Herbert, but not the Lubab. I'm like, I kind of want to just move it all together so I could get just like you get a good deal. I can get the cash I need. I don't need a ton to finish this off. So I'm like, I'm going, pass. And I'm just like, okay, thanks, bye, on to the next table. And, you hear no like 50 times, you start to feel like, man, this shit's not going to happen. So it was like a long time, and I'm hot. Jeremy's like, let's just go back to the hotel, check in, and like call it a night and try again tomorrow. I'm like, okay. So we go back to the hotel. I cool off. I get some water, and I'm like, nope, we're gonna go back. We're gonna do it tonight. We got back up, went back over to the show. I found a booth that was like from Chicago. I start talking to him. Jeremy comes in.
Let me stop you. No, let me stop it.
It was perfect.
I didn't want to quit because I am the guy who will grind. But as I've gotten older, I've learned sometimes it's best to just like walk away, reevaluate. So I could tell like throughout, like at that point, Manny is like, "What the hell is going on? Do you guys want to go get food? We'll wait for Courtney." And I'm like, "No, I don't think you guys understand. Like Courtney is mission focused right now. My job is to make sure that she's got like a granola bar once every 3 hours, bring her water, make sure she's got gum." And then what we tried to do is, if we could, and because it gets so busy, it doesn't always flow that way, was like I would try to get out in front and try to identify different spots. And so we found ourselves like towards the mid to late Thursday, as you'd go to like let's say the hit parade booth, and they're like, "We're looking for smaller cards," or and the money just wasn't flowing like it was last year, so it was going to take a unique buyer. Courtney's credit, we get checked in, brush our teeth, have some water, chill for 5-10 minutes. We go back, and then sure enough, like you walk back in with a new sense of, I can do this. And we found the table, and you have that feeling. I don't know what it is that's said, but it's one of those things that when you recognize that a deal's going down, a deal's going down. And it was that huge sense of relief because now we have this card on our persons, and we are adamant that we are not touching personal finance. And so that's important because, and this might only be unique to us. I don't want to say it's unique to us, but we could have easily been like, yeah, we're just gonna, go take money out of our account and not worry about it. But that breaks the rules, and that sets a poor example for the way that we're operating. So I do think the exercise again was useful. But yeah, we struck a deal, man. It was a Chicago dealer came to. We had cash in hand in the moment that we shook hands, and we had the money. It was like huge, huge. I would say sense of relief. Right? Is that how you felt?
I felt relieved because I was like, this isn't going to affect. I am a strict budget person. Like this much goes in savings each week. This much goes to bills. This is how much we have for like this. And we're planning a big vacation at the end of the year. I'm like, if I take this out of here, this is coming out of our vacation money. I don't want to do that. So I need to move these cards. I need to get this done. And relief and like also pride, because we worked really hard for that. It was hard work, and we did not give up. We didn't quit. And I actually lost something that I bought while we were doing it. Because like when we first got to the show, before the whole deal happened, we stopped at that slab magic thing, and he cleaned all of our cards. And I bought the box of the cleaning
slabs.
Stuff. Yeah, he cleaned our slabs, not our cards. Yeah, the slab. He like made them shiny. They would look pretty. He did a good job. So I bought the kit to clean your slabs with, and for like fingerprints and scuffs and stuff. It helps smooth and makes them look nice. And so I was excited about that, and like going from table to table with my bag, and then opening my bag, like I set it down somewhere and I lost it. So I was super bummed about that. But at the end of the day, I sold those cards and we got the Jordan. So Friday was a great day.
No. So I want to go back to Thursday, because as we're wrapping up our deal, Manny is, let's say we're at 12 o'clock. He's at 3 o'clock with another dealer selling some cards. And so, you're eavesdropping. And I was just so impressed with the way this company handled their business. Essentially what they were doing, they were at 75%. They looked up at eBay comps, each card, and they would put a sticky note on it. Do you agree with this? Cool, cool, cool. And they paid it out. It was nice and easy. Manny had a Jonathan Taylor rookie card numbered with an on-card auto, SGC 9.5 with a 10 autograph grade. And if you went just by SGC, the last comp was a couple months old, and that's what Manny had comped his card at. There was a raw card that just sold the day of the show for like 1.5x of what Manny's comp was. And the guy was like, hey, you can get so much more money. If I were you, I would hold it. And I routinely am attracted to and gravitate towards people who operate that way. So in that moment, it was like a friendship between us, because obviously me and Courtney are loud, and we're going back and forth. So we went back there the very next morning because, we bought some cards to sell, went right there. And I'm like, even if there was somebody that's willing to give me 90% or give me a better deal, I want you to be successful because I like the way that you're conducting your business.
I agree. Those guys are so nice. And they like remembered us the next day, like by name. And it was like, they were running their business the way that I feel like we run ours. And that's why I
Sure.
think you gravitated towards that. It's just like honest dealings, not taking advantage of people, like being friendly and engaging with the people walking up to your table. Nobody was sitting, nobody was looking grouchy, they weren't like eating. It was like they were there to do business. And I liked it. I was definitely here for it. So Friday morning, we meet up with Roy.
Anything noteworthy Thursday night?
Everything's like starting to bleed together. Oh, Thursday night was trade night, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's why it wasn't. Okay, so as the show was ending, everybody left the show and trade night was directly in the same building. It was in a different like area, but in the same space. And the line was so insanely long that I'm like, and like again, I was looking. We went to Card Collector 2's trade night the year before. We had a blast. It was so much fun, and so I wanted to go, but I am not a line person, which is ironic based on the way that the rest of the show went for me. I don't like waiting in lines, so I'm like, let's go eat, and then come back. Once they let people in and the line, because it wasn't open yet, but people were lining up to go in. And then, we'll go in. Well, while we're eating, we're hearing that they're not letting people in, that they closed the doors, it's done. And after like a couple hours, I'm like, well, let's just go check it out. So, and our friends, Miss Squirt, Sarah, and E were in there, and they're like, hey, are you coming? And we're like, sure, we'll come meet you. So we get there, and because I guess they did a really good job of like spreading the word that they weren't letting more people in, because there wasn't a line when we got there. There was like a couple people, and as people left, then they were letting people in, because I guess the fire marshal told them that they had reached capacity. So if that speaks, like anyone talking about like the health of the hobby, it was so packed in trade night that the fire marshal had to shut it down and close the doors and not let anyone else come in. So in my estimation, the hobby's doing fine. But we got there and it was just, our friends had been there for a while, and they said that they hadn't done a bunch of deals. People weren't like, I heard that people did really well there. Maybe it was just where we were located or whatever. It was not the hobby, like the trade night experience that I have become used to as far as trade. I don't know if there's just too many people, and it was like it was overwhelming for me. Jeremy, he did buy a card from Sarah, which was it was a good card, but it just, I don't want to say I was disappointed, but maybe the high of the show for us on Thursday, selling those cards and like all the dealing that I had done that day, I wasn't as into it. Maybe it wasn't the trade night specifically. Maybe it was my own mentality. I was not feeling trade night at all.
It was too big. It was too big, and I wonder moving forward, when there's so many people, it becomes not an enjoyable experience. There's people scattered everywhere. They're like, and maybe this is because we're a little bit older. Not exactly fun. Like, you love the idea, and I'm sure for Kentucky Roadshow and Card Collector too, to boast about what you built, and all credit to them.
As they
It's
rightly
incredible.
should.
But when you put like 30,000 people in a room, and half the people are on the floor, and there's not enough seating, and it was goofy. And I also think the lack of transactions. There was a lot of people either trying to get into cash or trade up, made things a little bit wonky. So for the sake of speed, I'm just going to fast forward. We ended up leaving there. We went back to the bar area, the bar and lounge on the second floor of our hotel, hung out with the Levex folks for a while, hung out with Sarah and E, and then called it a night because we had a big Friday ahead of us.
Friday, we had linked up with, and this is where everything kind of, did we get the dealer things on Thursday?
Yeah, we bought those Thursday. And so on a side
Friday,
note, there's a lot of people who came into the show that were only coming for a couple of days, or there was dealers who had extra badges. It was $25 a person, or 30 if you didn't buy it online. per person per ticket. We were able to get a couple of dealers badges with early entry for $100 a piece, which ended up being a
Changed
great
the
deal for
entire
us.
show for me. It changed the entire show for me because that first day when I got there early on Friday, we walk in and that is when I noticed this. I knew that Zero Cool had a Stranger Things thing and I was going to go check it out at some point, but I didn't really know what it was. So it was open, like it hadn't opened yet when I got there, and the guy who was running it like explained that you had to wait in line and the first 50 people would be able to get these Stranger Things packs.
Let me hold on. Let me one other thing. So one of the reasons we bought these was a friend of ours, Mark from Mark's Card Shop, asked us to pick up 2 Panini redemptions for him, and so it was by appointment only. So you had to have a QR code, all this stuff. Well, his appointment was for 9 o'clock. General admission tickets didn't start till 10 o'clock. So we bought the dealer badges because then we're like, hey, we can get in, we can take care of Mark. So he was really sick, ear infection. So we're like, hey, just so you know, this is what's going on. We had to buy passes, and it wasn't like we had to buy passes that we wanted anything. It was just like, hey man, I'm such your homeboy. You know, Reckless is looking out for you. We're not going to let anything get in the way of you getting your redemptions. And he was just, Mark being the guy that he is, super grateful and appreciative, says, you know what? When you get the black boxes, you're going to take one and I'm going to take one. And so we get in line, and guess what? Panini messed up and it was supposed to be 10 o'clock.
Because it was
not
all
9
Central
o'clock.
Time instead of, yeah.
Correct. So at this point, me and Courtney determined that I'm going to handle the Panini redemptions. You're going to go get in line for Zero Cool.
Yes, because I was like, here, now we have blown our wad on this Jordan auto, and I still want Stranger Things cards, and these are free. So cool. And I was first in line. So I'm like, I'm definitely going to get them. So I get them. You know, I did like, it's like this huge room. It's so cool. They had it set up. There's like this big cube that like had like images on it. It was like LED, and at like the time of the drops, the bell from the clock from Vecna would like ring 4 times like in the show, and then the first person could go and you type in your number. It's like, it was the coolest thing. So the first day it was like nothing. There was, you know, easily you could get in line. There wasn't any problems. And this is actually technically the second day because I missed Wednesday. I didn't even know it was a thing. So I missed the first 2 drops. I hit the 3rd drop. So I get in line and I'm number 1 in line. I get my things, I open them up, and I'm like, instantly I'm hooked, right? So I can't go to the afternoon drop that day, but I can go the next morning. So I spent the rest of my time at the show, and I could talk about this for hours. I spent the rest of my time at the show getting in line for these drops. The Saturday morning one was easy. Again, I was there early. Saturday afternoon was rough because they had a drop at 9:30 or 10:30 a.m. and then they had one at 2:30. So around 11:30, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go check out what's going on over there because they were also doing a Dune card drop and Clerks 3. So I walk over there and there's this guy waiting in line who I had talked to, and he was like, we have to wait in line here, and at 11:30 they're doing like Clerks or whatever. I grabbed the Dune one there, and then they were gonna they wouldn't open the line for Stranger Things until the Clerks one was done. So here I'm being polite. Me and this other guy were waiting in line, you know, like we were told to do, where we were told to wait in line. Meanwhile, around the corner, people start lining up for Stranger Things, and I had no idea that this was happening. So come to, you know, 12:30 when the Clerks thing is over, we walk around the corner and there's a line already formed for Stranger Things. So I'm thinking I've been waiting and I'm gonna miss out on these cards.
For the sake, I'm totally gonna just stop you in your tracks. Courtney did her pickup video where she goes into great detail, but essentially for each drop, she's waiting in line for 2.5 to 3 hours.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And so at that time, it freed me up. I spent some time with Manny looking for some stuff, and then making sure that Courtney was properly hydrated and bringing her food on
I would
demand.
text someone like, bring me bring me water, bring me gum. The worst part
So
about that is Jeremy went on a spending spree.
no. See, this is why you have to let me control it, because you have to go back to Friday. There is
Okay.
no spending spree. So Courtney gets the drop. And I will also add, if you have one of these badges, you can get in. Getting in line for things is a big deal. Submitting stuff to PSA, BGS, because that's like in the morning at 8:30 when they open up the doors. That's where everybody went. We didn't submit any cards, obviously. We just told you about our big spiel. So I was able to get the black box purchases. I started the redemptions. I stuffed them in my bag. I waited for Court. Court was on like a high because she loves Stranger Things, and I know nothing about this show. So it's like it makes her happy, so I'm happy. So we leave the hotel to go back, post up, or leave the convention center to the hotel to post up, get with Mark, say, hey, we're going to go live and open these boxes. That's how he wanted to do it. You pick your box, we pick our box, right? So we open the boxes. He gets like a flawless Drew Brees, on card auto. We get a Jokic rookie on card auto. Cool. Don't think much of it. But at this point, we're trying to link up with Bro Namath because now we've had the card. We want to get him the cash, right? So, and we had this Ogio bag, which has a million
Oh my God, the
compartments, and it's
Ogio
great.
bag.
However, I will tell you, about 100 times on this trip, we had a heart attack because you would think it's the money's in this pocket, but it was actually in this pocket, and our day would come to a screeching halt because it's like, oh shit, I lost the card. Oh shit, I lost the money. Oh shit, I can't find anything. And every time we'd find it in the bag. But when you're walking around with tens of thousands of dollars of cash and all of a sudden you can't find it, not a great feeling.
So Jeremy, I have a
it's
question
about,
real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we should do this story some justice. What do you think about wrapping and then doing like a part 2? Because I feel like we haven't even hit all of Saturday and Sunday.
Well, let me get through this point. Like, if you want to say you want to break in 10, 15 minutes, that's good. But I think this is worth.
I want you to tell this story in fullness and not feel like, oh, I have to tell it short. Because...
No, I'm not gonna tell it short. So we decide we go live. We've got the new black box. We drop off certain stuff at the hotel that we don't want to carry with us, and we go back over and we link up with Bro Namath. We give him the cash for the card because at this point we still haven't really told anybody. Like, there were some people with us that knew, but we weren't posting it because in my mind we haven't given this man his cash, so no deal has been consummated. Like, in as much as it would bruise my ego, and actually I don't know if I would have actually done it if I didn't have the cash. I was going to hand him the card back, but I can't do that because in my mind he already turned down a deal. So it's like, regardless, we're dipping into the personal finance. So it felt good to link up with him and close the deal. And at that point, like, we truly felt accomplished. So you got the BGS 9.5 with the 10 auto on this beautiful 2006, 2007 SP Signature Edition, our first ever Jordan auto. We grew up in Chicago, so obviously a big damn deal for us. Beautiful subgrades, and just really happy to have this card.
I can't express, like, growing up watching Jordan play, being in Chicago, like being like a kid in the 90s, like owning this card, like when I got the Jordan sticker rookie, like for me, that was a huge deal. This, like, I don't know, man. I don't get super emotional about cards very much, but like the journey of like what we went through when we realized that it was doable to get this card, and then, us like just putting our heads down, and when we intended to go to the show to just like enjoy ourselves and socialize and meet up with people and just like, it was going to be chill, to like take that completely out of the equation and go there and just put our heads down and like really work and sell the cards that we needed to sell and stick to our budget and not like dip into our money that like affects our family, but still manage to leave with that card. I was so proud of us. And I was like excited that we did it. and like having it in the house, like up on the shelf, like where I can look at it every time I go in the card shop is beyond like measure the coolest thing that I've done in a really long time.
I will say too, because if you were to rewind 1 year ago at National, the cards that we were looking at, this card was not even in the realm of possibility. And that's not to say that we couldn't have taken personal money and bought something relatively big, but it's just not the way that we operated. So for us, within our rules and the way we operate as a family and Reckless Cards as a business, to go from base cards and silvers to a few slabs to moving multiple four-figure cards to move into a card that is, arguably a five-figure card. It was a big deal, and it's just a testament to being disciplined in your decision making, but also the way we conduct ourselves. Because Courtney alluded to, and I think we'll end here, but there was a little bit of a spending spree, and that dovetails with what I believe the way we operate in the space, where operating in a good way and just activity sometimes breeds opportunity. And so this is midday Friday. We have officially no longer walking around with that cash, which was a nightmare. Courtney would not let me wear the Gucci bag across my chest, and I couldn't fit that many hundos in the Gucci wallet. So it just felt good to like have that money in where it belongs and actually like officially close the deal. So at that point, we were
Flying
not a
high.
care in the world.
No, I
Not a
felt
care
like
in the world.
that feeling of just when you talk about like finishing hobby night school, that feeling that I had of like relief times a million. The first like 3 days or 2.5 days of the national were such an emotional roller coaster between, was the internet going to work for hobby night school? Would it be good? Would we be able to find the booth? Are we going to be late? Will people like the hats that I made? To like like everyone liked the hats. Hobby night school went off like mostly without problems. People were so friendly, so finishing hobby night, like on the way to hobby night school, finishing hobby night school, like just the relief. And then Thursday, knowing that we were going to do that deal for that Jordan, and then like having to like sell the cards to make it happen. And then Friday getting it. And then Friday ended up being like back on the roller coaster for me with all the Stranger Things nonsense and getting in line and trading. So it was.
Let me tell you
I
this
would
too,
say,
Court. I think worth noting too is Friday, I did go back to that spot where Manny ended, and I sold a couple cards that morning waiting for Courtney to finish up at zero cool. So essentially the way we look at it is we traded 4 or 5 cards that we had no connection. I would say there was a little bit of connection to the Luba, but I'm a Cubs fan. And so like I'm not exactly, mad that card's gone, but we were able to trade 4 or 5 cards. Obviously it was a cash, but from what we left with to what we came home with, we were able to trade, 4 or 5 cards and move into a card that we like. And just as a side note, we showed somebody this card and they offered us approximately $3,000 more than what we paid for it. Like legitimately, like moments after closing the deal, we weren't even looking to sell it. It was more like
hey,
you're at a card show with other people who appreciate cards, and we're typically on the hey, look at this, and we're always like, oh, that's an awesome card, congratulations. Well, for once, we got to be like, hey, actually, we can pull out a card that other people might think is cool. And somebody's like, yeah, I'll give you this much cash for it, and I was like, nope, I'm good.
That was a great.
Nope, I don't want to. I don't want to walk around with cash. That's a nightmare.
No, I don't know. It was a good national, but I think this is a good place to like stop, and we can talk about the rest of Friday, Saturday, and the disaster that was Sunday morning.
Yeah, I say we do that. So stick around. Part 2 will come out, whenever the hell it comes out. Hopefully before National 23.
Absolutely. Well, thanks
All
so
right,
much, and
later.
have a great day. Bye.